How you doing this morning? Woo! Good. This morning we are beginning our Holy Day, Holiday Message series in which we're going to be looking at some of the biblical truths that we sing about each Christmas, and we may not even be aware of how deeply profound these truths are, because a lot of it, quite honestly, is lost on us in archaic language, and some of it also gets lost on us just as a result of our unreflecting over familiarity with these songs we've heard our entire lives. We just sing them by rote and don't even think about what it is that we're singing. And so today, this series, we're going to unpack some of these powerful biblical truths that we sing about. And so today we begin with Hark the Herald Angels Sing, which we sang a few moments ago. There is a lot of really good theology of the Christian faith in this carol, and so much so that I actually think that we may spend another week or so, but I haven't decided yet. I wasn't able to get to everything that I wanted to talk about this morning. And there's so much good theology. As just a brief historical note about this hymn, it was this carol. It was actually written by Charles Wesley, a name you might recognize from the Wesleyan denomination, or here in Indiana, we have Indiana Wesleyan University. That is where that comes from, Charles Wesley. And Charles Wesley, who wrote Hark the Herald Angels Sing, was in fact a pastor and a theologian. But what you may not realize is that Charles Wesley was really like the Chris Tomlin. You know, Chris Tomlin is like one of the hot worship guys of his day. Charles Wesley was the Chris Tomlin of his day. Do you want to guess how many worship songs Charles Wesley wrote? Any guesses? 10? Good. Over 6,000. Over 6,000. If you'd make an album of all of his stuff, it'd be like 500 albums. The best of Charles Wesley. The 500 CD collection. Right? Spotify that sometime. But anyway, many of his worship songs are still being sung across the globe today, almost 300 years later. And so, Christ the Lord is risen today. That one sound familiar, right? Oh, for 1,000 tongues to sing, my great... Does he sound familiar? Yeah, okay. And can it be that I should gain an interest in my Savior's blood? Died he for me who caused his pain, for me who him to death pursued. Amazing love, how can it be that Thou, my God, would die for me? That's good theology. That's the stuff he was writing. Love divine, all loves excelling. Anyway, Charles Wesley, I'm going on a tangent right now. But anyway, this is the point. The reason we might spend a little bit more time in Hark the Herald Angels Sing is because I just really felt prompted to go a completely different direction than originally planned. I had originally intended to focus on the somewhat obscure words here of verse 2 of Hark the Herald. Veiled in flesh, the Godhead see, hail the incarnate deity. Pleased as man with men to dwell, Jesus our Emmanuel. That is like a theology textbook, right? In those 4 lines. We could spend a month just in that line alone, and it's hard to understand though, right? Those are just some strange words in there. But this is why, this verse is why I entitled this entire message series, God in the Flesh. That's incarnational theology at its best right there. So maybe we'll talk about that next week. But this is where we're going this morning. I just felt in light of the headline news of the world over the last several weeks that we needed to focus in on truth from this carol that's more easily understood, and that's the peace on earth part. And Sheldon really was talking about it in our Advent devotional. So verse 1 of Hark the Herald Angels Sing, peace on earth and mercy mild, God and sinners reconciled. Verse 3, hail the heaven-born Prince of Peace. Hail the Son of Righteousness. I want to spend a week maybe even just talking about that second line there. The Son of Righteousness, light and life to all he brings, risen with healing in his wings. The words peace on earth in this carol, as you know, actually come from the Bible in the 2nd chapter of the Gospel of Luke, When Jesus was born, an army of angels appeared to some shepherds, and they announced the birth of Jesus with this proclamation about peace. And so we'll pick up in verse 13 of Luke chapter 2. There had been an angel who was individually addressing the shepherds, and then it says, suddenly that angel was joined by a vast host of others, the armies of heaven. And they were praising God and saying, "Glory to God in highest heaven, and peace on earth to those with whom God is pleased." So now the peace on earth lyrics in this carol are not so difficult to understand, are they? Right? Peace on earth is not archaic language that's lost on us. But I'll tell you what I think is lost on us, and that's this. Where is this peace on earth the angels declared? Where is it? It's not in our headline news, right? It sure doesn't seem to exist anywhere on this planet that we mortals call Earth. I think we might wonder if maybe the angels were supposed to go to some other planet that actually had peace, but they realized, oops, we made a mistake, but they were too embarrassed to come back and make it right, We showed up on the planet of war on Earth, and we said peace, So, hey guys, remember that thing we said about peace on your planet? It was a little embarrassing. It's awkward, but see, we took a left. We were supposed to take a right. I told everybody go right, but they wouldn't listen to me. But this is the point. The peace on earth part, no. Sorry. Right message, wrong planet. Right? That's the part I think that's lost on us. We understand the words peace on earth well enough. We just don't understand how peace on earth is a reality. The reality we see in the headline news of the planet is more like this. I'm quoting from a journalist recently who wrote this: "Killings are happening too often. They're bunched too close together at places we would never imagine. And now we can add to a lengthening roll call of mass shootings an ordinary workplace Christmas party." And many of us here, right now, may find ourselves, not wonderstruck in the euphoria of angelically declared planetary peace, right? But rather we find ourselves engulfed in a collective planetary fear. And the worst kind of fear, the fear of the absolutely ordinary. The fear that it's not safe to go to work. The fear that it's not safe to go to a movie theater. The fear that it's not safe to go to a soccer game. The fear that it's not safe to go to a rock concert or to a restaurant. The fear of sending our children to school. Right? The fear that our confidence that we've held that could never happen here isn't true anymore. Does any of that resonate? Yeah. Peace on earth? What planet do you guys think you're on? Where is this peace on earth? Did Wesley, did the angels, did the Bible get it wrong? Did God's peace not come to earth in Jesus, the heaven-born Prince of Peace? How are we to understand this peace on earth? And so this is what I felt we need to accomplish here this morning is, first of all, we need to understand what the angels meant when they said, hey, everybody, now, today, because a baby has been born, peace has come to earth. We need to understand what the angels actually meant and what they did not mean. But more importantly, we need to move into the place of that peace. I think many of us need to move into the experience of God's peace on earth here and now. And then lastly, we need to choose, and Sheldon touched on this on the Advent devotional he did, for us to choose to be a people who are going to be the ongoing conduits of God's peace on earth. It's not enough for us just to understand God's peace as the angels announced it. It's not enough for us to experience God's peace as the angels meant for us to experience. But more than ever, listen to this, Vineyard Community Church, more than ever, our broken, hostile, hate-filled, war-mongering planets needs for us to be the voice that peace has come from another realm. We have got to be the peace. We have got to be the incarnation again of the peace of God come to earth. That's probably where we'll run out of time in just a bit. So we're going to begin with an understanding of biblical peace. Right, God's peace on earth, as proclaimed by the angels, and Sheldon said this earlier, it does not mean the absence of bad. Yet. Peace on earth does not mean the absence of bad yet. And most of us typically think of peace as the absence of conflict, the absence of turmoil, the absence of stress. And so if, we come home at the end of the day and somebody asks us, hey, was it a good day? Did you have a peaceful day? We evaluate that on whether or not stinky stuff happened around us, right? And if it was bad, no, it was not a peaceful day. But if no stink happened, yeah, I guess it was a good day, right? But the biblical portrait of peace is something more than just the mere absence of bad. The biblical concept of peace, and as Sheldon said, is wrapped up in this Old Testament Hebrew word, shalom, right? It's one of the Hebrew words most of us know. Shalom, it means hi today, but it meant something more in the biblical framework. And you need to understand this, that God's angelically declared peace on earth, shalom on earth, did not and still does not mean the complete absence of bad. God was not declaring that all things bad have now been taken away. Right? We need to understand that. And at least not yet. And I'm going to go on a little footnote here. The day will come, when the heavens will again declare that God's ultimate shalom, God's ultimate peace will completely rule over the earth. And all things bad will be completely and ultimately destroyed. God, the angels will announce peace on earth. And every molecule of bad will be eternally crushed. Right? That's exciting, isn't it? Yeah. And it sounds wonderful to a lot of people, and many people wonder why God hasn't gotten rid of all evil already, why he hasn't stomped it out. But listen carefully to this. Most people entertain these kinds of thoughts that, yay, when God crushes evil, every molecule of it, most people think glowingly about that because they have never stopped to honestly ask the question, when God comes to ultimately destroy evil, to eternally destroy evil, to eternally destroy all things bad, what will be left of me? Every molecule of evil will be destroyed when the angels say, now peace on earth has come in its fullness. When God ultimately makes his shalom peace the rule over all of his creation, will I belong there? Do you understand that question? In a place where peace is the rule of the day, do I belong there? Will I screw it up? Do I belong in the place of God's uncontaminated shalom? So, and the truth is this, when the angels of heaven again declare, they appear and announce that the shalom of God has ultimately and eternally and completely come to earth, it won't be a happy Christmas carol that they sing. It will be a battle cry. It will be a battle cry, and shalom will win the day. And many people who nostalgically longed for the rule of God's shalom will find that they weren't really ever on the side of God's shalom to begin with. Right? But that's not my point. I'm not even going to talk about that. This is the point. The angelic announcement of God's shalom on earth then did not mean the complete removal of all things bad. Yet. That's coming. God's shalom on earth means this. It does mean this, the presence of something good now. The presence of something good now in the midst of the bad that still remains. The angelic announcement meant that God's future ultimate rule of shalom, which is out in the future, the announcement meant that that future has shown up now. And again, Sheldon, gave us a preview of that in Revelation. That's the future shalom of God, and those leaves of healing are being stretched into the bad of now. The perfections of the future have invaded now. For those of you who are science fiction geeks, I am one, so I can call you geeks, right? The angels were announcing like this rift in the space-time continuum. And the perfections of the future are now leaking into the present. God's healing, his perfect wholeness of the future is, the angels saying, it's dripping into the now, into the brokenness and the badness and the warmongering, hate-filled sinfulness of now. That was the announcement. Good, ultimate good has come now. And implicit in this biblical concept of shalom is the fact that that perfection, that peace now, means completeness in every aspect of life. It means wholeness for every aspect of life. It means harmony and joy and satisfaction and contentment. Again, not just the absence of bad, but the presence of good, contentment and health and safety and righteousness and justice and social justice and racial harmony. All that is part of the future. And the angels have said, we bring you glad tidings of great joy. All of that is now leaking into this mess that we live in today because of a baby that was born in Bethlehem. God's perfect will, as it is done in heaven, is now invading the brokenness of planet war. Right? And so implicit in this concept then, as I was saying, of Old Testament shalom is the fact that then shalom isn't just the absence of bad, but it's the presence of ultimate good for the whole of creation, for the whole of the planet, for the whole of us. And so that the future is dripping into the now means that we can have spiritual peace, spiritual wholeness with God. We can have personal shalom. Peace in our minds, peace in our hearts, peace in our bodies, peace in our emotions. That future is dripping into the now. We can have peace in our relationships. We can have peace in our society. We can have shalom on our planet. Not that God is yet going to remove all evil, but he is dripping the perfections of the future into the now. To understand, this is what the angels were announcing. The future has come now in Jesus. So it does not mean the total absence of the completely bad, but it does mean now the presence of the completely good. And why is this an important distinction? I want to tease out some applications for you. There's a couple reasons why it's important to differentiate between understanding peace as the absence of all bad, as opposed to how the Bible sees it as the presence of that which is ultimately and completely good. All right? It's important because it's going to change our understanding of where the place of peace is. I've referred to the place of peace as the shalom zone. Where is the shalom zone? All right? And when we understand this, where the shalom zone is, it's also going to bring into focus for us what our marching orders are as the ambassadors of God's shalom in this broken, messed up world in which we live, okay? Those are the implications. So first of all, the place of peace on earth, the shalom zone, is the place of yielded submission to the rule of God. Do we have that? I don't know if we have something like that on the screen. The shalom zone on earth is the place of God's rule. So let me explain. All of our lives, most of us have heard this angelic announcement abbreviated in these ways and wrongly abbreviated. We've heard the angelic announcement as peace on earth and goodwill towards men, right? Peace on earth and goodwill towards men. Or peace on earth towards men of goodwill, right? Those are abbreviations. But the problem with these commonly and more commonly known abbreviations of the angelic proclamation is that they portray a false portrait of the peace, the shalom that came to earth in the advent of God in the flesh. The angels were not saying that Jesus is now born and we angels just want to spread, some pixie dust on the planet so that everybody will have some warm, fuzzy holiday cheer. All right? The advent of God in the flesh did not bring peace to all. It did not bring peace to all. Peace on earth and goodwill towards men is not what the angels said. The place of peace on earth, the shalom zone, is not anywhere or everywhere. Okay? Tuck that away. Neither did the angels declare, as we commonly hear, peace on earth towards men of goodwill. Because this common abbreviation would suggest that the advent of God in the flesh brought and brings peace to good people. Right? Peace on earth to men of goodwill. To people of goodwill. But the place of peace on earth, the shalom zone, is not the place of good deed doing for good deed doers. That is not what the angels said. What the angels declared was this: listen, planet Earth, we have glad tidings of great joy. God has brought the perfections of the future into the now, through coming as himself in the flesh through this baby, Jesus. And he has brought with him peace on earth to those with whom he is pleased. Peace on earth to those on whom his favor rests. Now that's very different. What they said is actually sort of bothersome because it's not peace for everybody. It's not peace for everybody. There's a somber note of discord in this angelic song. God's peace is not for everybody. The place of peace on earth, the angels were declaring, is the place of God's pleasure. It's the place of God's pleasure. It's the place of God's peace on earth is the place that is under that which pleases God. It's that which is, it's under the place of God's will. The shalom zone on earth is the place under God's rule, God's pleasing rule. What does this mean? It means if we want to have Christmas shalom in our lives, that the angels declared is available to us, we have to move ourselves beneath the rule of what pleases God. That is the shalom zone. Think of it this way. If you have never been on this platform right here, you are not aware that there are two mutant spotlights right here that are thermonuclear, right? If I move right to this right spot, I can get a tan. But, if I move out from beneath the place where that light is breaking through. Actually, I can't even see you guys now because I'm totally blinded by looking up at that thing, right? It's different. Yeah. So the place of the experience of the light in the darkness is beneath the light. Right? And that's exactly what the angels were telling us about God's peace on earth. The spotlight of God's peace, the spotlight of shalom with God, has stepped into the darkness of planet Earth through the person of Jesus Christ. And God's peace on earth is available to you right now if you step into the light. Does that make sense? If you step beneath the place, out of the darkness, and live beneath the spotlight of the rule of that which is pleasing to God. That's the shalom zone. This is the light zone. The place of God's rule is the shalom zone. And so that's the first thing we need to understand about where peace is found. It's found under the presence of the rule and the pleasure of God. The shalom zone is not anywhere, it's not everywhere for anyone or everyone. It is the place where God's rule reigns over the hearts of men and women. All right, and secondly, there's a second implication of rightly understanding that shalom is not just the absence of that which is completely bad, but the presence of the completely good. Rightly understanding what peace on earth means, as the angels declared it, also helps us understand the shalom zone in this way, is that the shalom zone is within. The shalom zone is within. See, listen to this. Track with this carefully. If we wrongly understand that God's shalom zone is the absence of conflict around us, then we will live our lives and we'll think in terms of experiencing peace. I need to experience peace. And how do we do that if we think that peace is out there? Then we're going to live our lives trying to alter things out there. We're going to try to alter the turmoil and the mayhem and the turbulence around us. And if we can't do that, then we have to withdraw from the turbulence and the mayhem and the turmoil from around us. So listen to this. We'll wrongly believe that the key to God's shalom in our lives is try to manufacture shalom around our lives. And then we'll strive relentlessly to try to impose shalom on everything bad around us. And when, on people around us, on the circumstances around us. And when the people around us don't comply with our shalom expectations, which they quite often don't. Do you know that one? They don't live by my rules of shalom, and they mess up my shalom. Which is why I got to change people. Circumstances don't honor my shalom zone, right? And so that's why we work so hard to try to manipulate the circumstances around us. Because when people aren't creating shalom for me, when my circumstances aren't creating for shalom for me, I am not at shalom. And if I can't control it, then I'm going to withdraw. I'm going to go to my own shalom zone. I'm going to go to the beach, right? I'm going to go to the mountains and get away from y'all. I'm going to go take a bubble bath. That's my shalom zone. You do that too. Don't laugh at me. Oh, did I say two? I didn't mean to say two. You do that. All right. Now, those are good things. We need to have shalom zones in our lives. We do. Those are good things. We need shalom zones in our calendars. That's just good, healthy living. But God's shalom on earth, the peace that has come into the world through the advent of Jesus Christ, the Prince of Peace, is not a peace that is contingent on the rearrangement of our circumstances, on the controlling of people around us. God's shalom zone on earth, God's peace on earth, is a peace that we're meant to have within, in spite of our circumstances, in spite of the anti-shalom people that pull out in front of us on the roads. You understand that? God's shalom on earth is the presence of something ultimately good. It's the present of this peace and this healing and this wholeness and this joy and this satisfaction and this fulfillment that is wholly, otherly, worldly, which didn't make sense. It's completely from another realm. It's a shalom from another realm in the midst of bad all around us. Do you see how that changes our understanding? We realize that God's shalom isn't yet fixing all the bad around us, but it is present for us to live another kind of existence in the midst of the bad all around us. In John 16, Jesus tells us that is exactly the way his shalom works, that his shalom, the shalom that has come through the Prince of Peace, transcends our anti-shalom circumstances here on the planet of war. John 16:33, Jesus said, listen, I have told you this, the things he had explained. I have told you all this so that you may have peace in me. Here on earth, you will have many trials and sorrows. Jesus gives us a very unpleasant promise right there, doesn't he? Here on earth, you will have many trials and sorrows. The Prince of Peace didn't even promise that it's all going to be made right yet. It's coming. But in the meantime, take heart because I have overcome the world and I have given you peace in me. Peace within, in spite of the circumstances around us. And so Jesus promised that when we live our lives beneath the spotlight of God's pleasure, when we live our lives beneath the spotlight of God's rule, then even in spite of the certainty of trials and sorrows on earth, here and now, we can know the future of shalom here and now. One more verse, and I think we're going to wrap up here and leave the rest for next week. Is that okay? Can I do that? Paul says good. All right. Paul's call. Just another verse that shows us that the shalom zone is within, 2 Thessalonians 3:16. Now may the Lord of peace himself give you his peace at all times and in every situation. The Lord be with you all. In every time, in every situation. When we have anti-shalom people in our lives, when we have anti-shalom circumstances, when we live in a world where disgruntled coworkers may show up with an AK-47 at our Christmas party, when it might not be safe to go to a movie or a concert or a sporting event or a restaurant. The peace of the Lord and the presence of the Lord himself can give you peace at all times in every situation. The shalom zone is here and it's now. And it's in the presence of the Prince of Peace.